Hey guys, welcome to my channel, Grow with Miss T. My name is Salafela Mokhale, where I'll be talking to you about all things purchase order funding, mental wellness, as well as physical wellness, especially for us ladies who are over 40. But before I start, I would like to put a disclaimer that over a year ago, Henry Gatosa from Success Inspiration Academy reached out to me when he was busy with a segment on funding for SMMEs, and we spoke specifically about purchase order funding. And because that is the space that I come from, I have experience in, I then went to detail. We spoke for about an hour where I explained to him step by step what purchase order funding is all about. So I'm in no way here to take or steal any content from him. The purpose of my channel is to go into detail, taking small chunks of the purchase order funding sector to, number one, educate, to empower, to create awareness to SMMEs that are already in the supply and delivery of goods, to government or JSE listed companies, or to people that are contemplating on taking their chance at being a supplier to government, specifically for supply and delivery of goods. And I am highlighting supply and delivery of goods because that is the area that I am familiar with and that I am comfortable with. So my information on purchase order funding will be specifically on that. So let's get into it. You're a supplier, you're an SMME to government, you have been in the supply and delivery of goods space for some time. And let's use an example. The Department of Agriculture issues an RFQ, a request for quotation, or issues an invitation to bid or an invitation to tender for supply and delivery of goods. Either it can be a once-off. If it's a tender, it can be a contract for 12 months, 18, or it can be longer than that. It all depends on the government department. So, back to the beginning. Department of Agriculture, as an example, issues an RFQ for stationery. You are registered as a supplier on the Central Supply Database online. You have an MAAA number to prove that you are registered to do business with government. You are also part of a panel. You are registered on the particular government department's database as a supplier. You respond and you know the drill. You have to complete and sign SBD forms. Those are supplier bid documents where you have to make certain declarations to show that you are eligible as a supplier to do business with government. What is also important to remember is that you need to indicate on the SBD form that your price is going to be firm, so there is not going to be change. Please do not skip that section. Number two, you also need to indicate to the government department that you do have the requisite funding and you're not going to require funding. It's up to you. If you say you're not going to require funding, remember there are implications. But if you say that you are going to require funding, that is where you're able to come to me to get information about purchase order funding or approach a purchase order funding company. So you're done with all of that and you are then ready to submit. You have your returnable company documents, which is your company registration documents. They still need to be valid. You have your BBBE certificate, you have your tax PIN, you have a certified copy of the directors, you have proof of address for the directors, you have proof of address for the business. So you need to comply. These are non-negotiable. Should a document not be included, unfortunately, you're going to be disqualified from participating. You also have included your own quote as a supplier to government. And where would you get this quote from? You go to your own supplier. As I said, we are using the Department of Agriculture as a reference, as an example. They're looking for stationery, so you've gone to a stationery supplier or manufacturer. They've given you a quote, and hopefully you have negotiated the best rate with them. And then you submit all these documents. You have, a contents page which outlines which and what information is in the document, as well as the returnable documents. You need to follow the format and the numbering from the department in the SBD forms. It makes it easier for the bid committee when they sit down, to go through your documents. You put your details, your documents in an envelope. You put the government department, the reference number, the tender or the RFQ, the contact person, the physical address, as well as the person that will be receiving the document from you. You also need to include your own particulars as well, so the name of your company, your address, contact details, email address on the front of the envelope. You submit on time, hopefully, and 2 weeks later, or however long, the department then contacts you to say that you are successful, but in order for them to issue an award letter or a purchase order, you need to confirm and say that you will be able to deliver on the said deadline. You confirm that on email, they then issue an award letter, you sign it, and then you are issued with a purchase order. Good and well. So what happens next? You need to deliver. You go back to the drawing board. What does this mean? You need to go back to your supplier and confirm, show them proof that the department indeed has issued a purchase order, and hopefully you have a good relationship with them. But if you don't, you have a chat with them and you say to them, I need to deliver. Let's say, for instance, as an example, the department has issued you with a purchase order for 500,000 rands, right? But your input costs, your supplier costs come to 350,000 rands. So what does that mean? In your pocket, you have 150,000 rands as potential profit. Your supplier then says to you, sorry mate, we can't extend credit to you, right? You are stressed. Number two, you go to your bank, and unfortunately, because of the current economic environment that we are in, the bank is unable to help you with credit. So all your credit facilities are not available for whatever reason. You go online, you look for funding, and then you realize that they're actually purchase order funding companies. So what is going to happen? As an SMME, you are going to need to prove to the purchase order funding company that indeed the purchase order that you have is valid, has been issued by the said government department. Your supplier exists, they have the capacity to actually deliver, and that you will also be able to deliver all of those goods to the government department. That is non-negotiable. You also need to prove to the funder that you are actually a registered supplier with government. They will require the latest copy of your CSD report. It's non-negotiable. You need to prove to the funder that you're actually in compliant. You also need to share with them a copy of the RFQ that was issued, for one simple reason. The funder is then going to look at the items that your supplier has issued on the quote against the RFQ's technical specifications of the Department of Agriculture or whichever government department. Once they are happy, they will then, say to you, this is how much we are going to help you with. So that's purchase order funding. Purchase order funding essentially is when a company that is not a bank, it's not your traditional, finance institution. These are not your traditional lending institutions. These are companies that put faith in SMMEs based on a valid and an open purchase order that can be verified with a government department's procurement department. It is non-negotiable. So a purchase order funding company, depending on their requirements, they won't discriminate against you because of your credit history, because of your current financial situation. What they do is they bet on the purchase order. So they will give you benefit of the doubt based on a valid purchase order, based on a valid supplier quote, and also based on the due diligence that the funder is going to do to prove and satisfy themselves that indeed the purchase order is valid and that your supplier exists and they have sufficient capacity to deliver and give you the goods that you require, and that you are also in a position, to move forward with them. So that is all you need to do as an SMME. You need to prove the legitimacy of your purchase order, the legitimacy of your supplier. It's non-negotiable, and I'm saying this to give you comfort that should you ever feel that you are uncomfortable with information that a funder is asking, there is no need for that. Remember, a funder is coming in and giving you assistance. They are helping you with money that your traditional banks and your traditional finance lending institutions are not able to help you with. Who else can do that for you? You can't even go to Mashonisa, because if you go to a Mashonisa, they are actually going to require a lot from you. They're going to require collateral. So are you in a position to provide a Mashonisa with collateral? Do you want to give certain personal things of yours to a Mashonisa who does not have any processes? Because should you miss your payment, trust me, you are going to end up with nothing. So your best bet, based on my experience, if you're an SMME and you need to deliver on a purchase order, is to go online, Google purchase order funding. There are tons of companies out there, and you just need to ensure that you comply, because number one, you have an obligation to the government department to deliver on the purchase order. Secondly, you have an obligation to the funder who is helping you with funding, where nobody else from a traditional finance lending perspective is able to extend help to you with. So it is normal for funders to require these four basic things. Number one, it's for you to submit a valid and an open purchase order to the purchase order funding company, a valid supplier quote, the latest copy of your CSD report, as well as the copy of the RFQ, so that they check the technical specifications, as well as quantities and deadline, so that they do their part. Remember, purchase order funding companies have an obligation to their investors. So everybody has a responsibility. At the end of the day, the onus lies with you as an SMME to prove to the purchase order funding company that they can give you that assistance with funds, and they're not discriminating against you because of your bad credit. Depends on the purchase order funding company that you work with. Different companies have different requirements. I will get into that on another video, but it's important for you to comply. I'm going to go into further detail as time goes, why funders require the information that they require of you, why it's important for you to comply, because the bank is not there to help you. I'm really excited, guys. My name is Solofela Machale, and my channel is Grow with Miss T. Like, subscribe, and share. You never know, somebody in your network might actually be looking for information. And don't forget, I also help SMMEs that are looking for funding. I'm an independent broker, so I can actually assist, and I'll do my best to connect you with purchase order funding companies. Living hand, love. Until we chat again soon.